All right, what's up everybody? So I'm back with another video today, and in this one I'm going to be teaching you how to change the oil on basically any motorcycle the easiest way possible, the way I've done it tons of times before. We're going to be doing it on my DRZ today, and yeah, for pretty much every motorcycle whenever it comes to oil changes, it's all basically the same principle. It's super simple, shouldn't take you more than 30 minutes or so. Since I'm going to be videoing this and kind of documenting what all I do with it, it's probably going to take longer than that, obviously. Alrighty, but anyways, let's jump right into it. I don't want to keep y'all waiting. I don't like looking up how-to videos and they give their whole life backstory on whatever, so let's get right into it. All right, so the first thing that you'll need, and really the basis for any oil change on a bike, is very simple. You're gonna need oil, you're gonna need your filter, and inside that filter box is also some gaskets. I always recommend replacing your gaskets whenever you get them. If you get them at a parts store like I do, they usually come with gaskets in them already. But if not, inspect your gaskets, and if there's no tears and there's no like rotting to them, you can usually reuse them. Also, as long as your bike's not leaking, you can use the same gaskets, but I always recommend just replacing them. Another thing that you can do, and I'll show it later when I actually start draining the bike and show you the drain plug, they usually come with a crush washer on there. And I will admit, I have reused crush washers before, and people will tell you to not do that, but I've never had an issue with it. Sort of the same thing, unless your bike is like leaking oil out because that washer is just squeezed so far down. It's usually not going to be an issue. So I'm not going to replace the crush washer in this one, but I'm going to replace the gaskets. All right, so let's go over to the bike now. The first step of any oil change that I recommend doing actually hasn't anything to do with the oil or really touching the bike necessarily itself or any of the parts over there. All you really need to do first is just warm the bike up. Fires right up. The reason you want to warm your bike up is not only because this bike, the DRZ specifically, is a dry sump oil system, so you have to let the oil circulate a good bit, but it's also recommended because you want to get the oil hot, so it's more viscous, and the hotter the oil is, the more it wants to flow, and so the more dirty oil you're going to get out of your system. So we're going to let this thing warm up real quick. I'm going to feel the oil pan kind of every minute or so to see if it gets warm, because this thing actually doesn't have like an oil temperature on it, or it doesn't really tell me like an operating temperature. So I'm going to have to actually feel under the pan. So once it gets warm, I'll go to the next step. All right, I think we've got it warmed up enough now. If we feel the bottom of here, it's not hot enough to like scald me, but it's definitely warm. I wouldn't want to keep my finger on it for too long. So alrighty, now that we got the bike warmed up, second thing to do is take the oil fill, I guess, screw off. It's leaving my head right now. And you want to take this off because whenever I forgot mine doubles as a dipstick. We're gonna leave that in there. And the reason you want to take this off is because whenever you undo your drain plug down there, you want air to go down into your engine basically, because it helps the air come down, and it helps the oil come out smoother. Along with it being warmed up, this should hopefully make the oil come out pretty quick. But some people like to take this out, example, fully out, and even some of the other ones that aren't the dipstick, they like to just take it off. I like to leave mine not fully screwed in, but still just resting on it, because that way if a bug or a leaf or something were to come and it doesn't go down and into your motor, because that would not be a good time. So we're gonna keep this loose but still keep it on, so it's at least protection. All right, now we're down here, and for us DRZ guys, we actually have to take off the skid plate right here. All it is a few 10mm bolts, so I'm gonna pop this baby off real quick. All right, we now have the skid plate off and all of the bolts consolidated with it. And now that I'm looking at it, I probably could have undone the drain bolt without taking the skid plate off, but it never hurts to get it out of the way. I mean, it literally took me 20 seconds to do. So now that the skid plate's out of the way, the DRZ, for those of y'all that don't know, actually has two drain plugs. So you have your main one down here for your drain pan, but you also have one right there, if you can see it without me trying to, I want to burn my hand on the exhaust. So you have one right there that's actually on the frame, and we're going to actually unscrew that one first. That's a 12mm, and then we'll come back down here and get the 14mm. All right, so I have my oil catch pan in place, and I have a little plug right here loose on it as well, to where it'll catch the oil, but I'm still going to put it right in there, just kind of resting, so the oil can still drain in but whenever that bolt drops down, it doesn't drop down and roll into the pan, because that would not be good, because I would not be able to get it out. So we're just gonna unscrew this 12mm bolt real quick. All right, there we go. Turning good now. Now's a good time to actually inspect it, and I'm gonna restart this so my light's on. All right, so we got the light on now, and I probably need to pull that plug out a little bit more. It's not really draining that much, but now is always a good time to actually go and check the quality of your oil, since it's kind of pulling up right now. And it scared me for a moment because I saw all these little specks in there, and I thought, like, oh no, maybe that's like metal shavings or something, but it looks to be just dirt, or it's probably dust more than anything. This pan's been sitting in my storage unit for some good months on it, so it's probably just dirty right here, because it's not shiny at all. Doesn't seem to be that milky. I know it kind of looks like it with the light shining straight into it, but overall it actually doesn't look like that bad quality of oil. I mean, I replaced the oil in this thing when I got it about 1,000 miles ago. So yeah, it should be in pretty good condition already, because, you know, it's not a lot of damage you can do to oil within 1,000 miles, but it is still pretty dark, which is kind of surprising. So yeah, now that we got the first one undone, we got the plug down there. We'll throw that one back in and then get the second plug in. All right, so we just snugged up this drain plug right there, that 12mm. To be honest with you, I don't know the torque specs for that. I basically just went and hand snugged it, and then with the wrench just gave it a little bit extra of a click. With stuff like this, you don't need to crank down on the plugs. It's aluminum threads and they're pretty thin. You don't want to go down too much, or you actually risk stripping that, which especially on this one, I don't want to strip, because that is the frame. And same thing for this one down here. You don't want to snug it down too much, but first things first is we gotta undo it first, or unscrew it. Yep, like right here. Now 1, 2, 3, pull out. There you go. And that's how you can get it fully out. And then once you know, you can pull it back quick so you don't burn yourself. But the frame bolt actually drains the majority of the oil out. And then now down here, as you can see, there's only a little bit, a small amount of oil left. So we're gonna let that drain out. And I guess we can inspect the oil here too, but it honestly looks good. I mean, get some on my finger and you can just kind of feel there's no grittiness to it. It's all good there. And another thing that you can do, let me get this set on a rag. You can look at the oil drain plug here as well and kind of inspect it to see if there's any metal shavings or any grittiness on it. There's usually going to be some residue, like right there. You can see just like very minor sort of grayness. That's just normal wear and tear. Like I said, I changed the oil a good while ago. As you can see, there's no shininess to it. If there was shininess, it'd be a little bit of a concern, but a little bit of residue on it isn't a big deal at all. That's going to be normal. It's been on every single vehicle I've replaced oil on, but still make sure to kind of wipe that off a little bit, just get that residue off. So if your bike is in a situation where it needs to catch some residue, like if something lets loose in the motor, your magnet will be completely free in order to catch as much remnants of stuff as possible. So we're going to clean this on, and then we're going to clean this off, and then we're going to throw it back on the oil pan. All right, so now that we got the bottom drain bolt all snugged up somewhere right there, the last thing that we need to take out is the oil filter, which mine is right here. It's conveniently just 3 screws that I have to take off here, and it just kind of comes out. I'm not gonna be able to video me unscrewing this because I actually have to keep pressure here because there's a spring behind it. But I'll show y'all what I did kind of want to get it off. Your bike might be a little different. You might not have the ability to like unscrew it and take it out as like a cartridge filter like mine is. You might actually have to unscrew it off because you have a canister filter. And for that, there's other videos on how to do that. It's really simple. Some people just get channel locks and grab straight down and just kind of destroy the filter while turning it like that. Or if you don't have room for those, any auto parts store sells like the little the oil filter wrench that just kind of cinches around it. So I'm gonna get this popped off real quick, and then I'll detail kind of to y'all what I did after. All right, so just a quick little trick here. I actually undid the bottom-most 2 bolts right here, took them completely off, and I left this most top one barely threaded enough to where it still hangs on. And so you can actually pull the cartridge out and drain the rest of the oil out of it, and I'll have to tip the bike over to get really the most out of it. I mean, as you can see, it lifts it up just enough here to where the rest of the oil drains out. I'm gonna have to clean it up, obviously, but it's just kind of an easy way to like let all the oil kind of slowly dribble out instead of having to like pull this whole thing off and you're kind of scattering oil everywhere. This keeps it more consolidated, so you can just kind of lift up on the bottom and it just kind of drains, and then once it's done, you can take it fully off without having to worry about getting oil like really everywhere. All right, the cover is now off, and that's it right there, 3 bolts. And here's the first gasket right here. It stayed stuck right here whenever I got it off, so I'm just putting it right there. And honestly, the gasket's still in really good condition because I changed it the last time. But since the new filter came with the new gasket, we're just gonna replace it anyways. But yeah, now that we got the lid off, now we just grab our handy dandy little oil filter here. If I can get my baby little fingernails behind it. These studs are actually really hot right now, so I'm trying to dodge them. All right, there we go. Now I can just yank that sucker out, put it right there in our little handy dandy little divot there to let the rest of it drain. And we can kind of inspect inside and see, feel around a little bit. Yeah, oil's in good condition. It's not gritty at all. Still feels in good condition, it's just obviously used. Inspect the filter a little bit. Filter seems to be in good condition. I don't really see any true shiny bits in it. And one important key thing to note, that right there is your second gasket. Do not leave that gasket in there. You have to remove it. I'm probably gonna have to get a screwdriver to take that one out, but sometimes people will not see that one in there and they'll go ahead and throw their second gasket on and then press it in there, and it's not gonna seal all the way. And so you wanna make sure to get that tiny little gasket out of there before you do anything else. Make sure it's out, so that way when you put this gasket on, it makes a good seal instead of doubling up on a gasket. So I'm gonna remove this one just real quick. All right, so I went ahead and cleaned all the old oil out right there, and also went ahead and installed the new O-ring right there. And this is the old one here. So now I'm gonna throw in the new filter, and it is very important on which way you put this in. So you see how this end has like the lettering and also has the cap right here, and this one right here has the open hole. The open hole needs to go in the back side like this. And then whenever you go and put the spring on, you'll want to line it up so it'll actually press, that spring will press right here in the circle and actually line it up straight right there. All right, we have now put the cover back on. I still need to clean some of the oil drippage off of here, but I put the cover back on now, and pay attention that the arrow right here obviously needs to be pointing up because that's the way it came off. And for these 3 bolts right here, you don't need to put them on very tight. Once again, I don't really look at like a torque spec for this. I basically just grab right here and I go until it gets tight, and I give it just a little bit of a thrust to really get it snug down. You don't have to go very hard with these, so don't crank down on it. And yeah, all we have to do at this point is throw some oil in it, and while that's all kind of draining and getting down into the crevices of the engine, I'm going to throw the skid plate back on. All right, so I realized I actually forgot to pick up my funnel whenever I got my tools, so I'm just going to kind of freehand this oil into this fill drain right here. So I'm not going to be able to video that. I'm going to throw that quart and that quart in there. Boom, look at that. I just freehanded 2 quarts of oil. And look at that, not even a drop. Almost like I've forgotten a funnel before in a past time and I've had to do this. But anyways, so yeah, the oil is now in the bike, so here it is. Now we're gonna throw the dipstick back on it. Actually, I'm gonna clean that off real quick, but I'll do that when I have 2 hands. So oil is back in the bike. Just letting it kind of circle around right now, kind of get ready in some crevices before I start the bike up. So now I'm just gonna throw the skid plate on, clean the dipstick, and we should be ready to fire this thing up. Oh yeah, and one quick little tip, once again for you DRZ guys right here. These threads right here for the fill, and especially on the cap right here, are super easy to strip, okay? If you start cranking down and you feel any sort of bit of tension and it stops, like you yourself need to stop because you're about to strip it. A little tip that I do is, so I set the dipstick down in there and I like to kind of twist counterclockwise on it until I kind of feel it flatten out a bit, and even sometimes you can feel it kind of click like that. What that's doing is you're kind of backing it out onto the thread pattern. And then once you kind of have it flat enough, then you can start slowly going back the other direction. And you can see it going down and how little pressure I'm putting on it. That's how smooth you need to be with it, because if you really try and crank down, especially if you're not on the threads, you will strip this very, very easy. And once again, this is on the frame. You will strip the frame threads, and that is not going to be a good time, because then this will never sit properly. So be careful putting this back on. Rest it on there, slowly counterclockwise until you feel it flatten out onto the threads, and then slowly put pressure until you feel it start threading in, okay? And then just give a little bit of a snug, sort of extra firm twist, and then you're good to go. You don't need to mess with this anymore. All right, the skid plate has now been put back on it. All right, checklist. Drain plugs. Frame one is tight, oil pan one's tight. Filter right here, these have all been snugged down. Now finally, the cap up here, it is snug. I have put 2 quarts of oil in it. All right, I think everything's good. We have everything cleaned off now. Let's go ahead and give this bike a start. All right, now we're just gonna let it circulate around a little bit. Normal bikes, or I guess bikes without a dry sump system, don't have to wait as long. All you really need to let it do is circulate enough to start running through the filter right there. But since the DRZ is a dry sump system, I actually have to let it run for about 2 to 3 minutes and then turn it off, let it drain some oil for about 2 to 3 minutes inside itself, and then check the oil level. So I'm gonna do that real quick, and then I'll show you the results. All right, let's check the level. I just let it run for a few minutes, then kind of sit for a few minutes, and I already wiped down this thing the first time. So now let's see what the results are. So it looks like, if it'll focus, why aren't you focusing? Let me move over here into the light. All right, so yeah, I don't know what the deal is. It's not wanting to focus on it, unless maybe if I hold it right out here, but yeah, it's pretty much right in the middle of the cross hatching, maybe a little bit below. The bike's also been sitting for a minute. Overall, it calls for 2 quarts. In fact, it calls for 1.9 quarts specifically, but put 2 quarts in it just for easy math. So it's got enough oil in it. Y'all saw me put it in there. Y'all can look it up yourself. There's oil in it. Dipstick is just good measure to make sure you're not losing oil as you're riding the thing. So, but yeah. Alrighty, we are all done now. That is how you basically change the oil on a DRZ, or really any motorcycle if you want to. Overall, it's the same sort of key factors and basics to keep in mind. You're just gonna have to obviously flip some stuff around depending on how your bike's laid out. Like I said, with the oil filter, or obviously how much oil your bike takes. So do your own research on your bike. Make sure what you're doing is correct. This is not the like end all be all video of exactly how to do it for every bike. This is just the basics of how to do it, and more specifically, if you have a DRZ, how to do an oil change on that one. So yeah, be sure to like, comment, subscribe. If you liked the video, tell me what you liked about it. If you didn't like it, tell me what you didn't like. I'm open to criticism. So yeah, y'all have a good night, and I'll catch you on the next one.